I'm getting a new bathroom sink.
Yeah, it's probably time.
It needed to happen.
One was a little bit tired.
Yeah, it's a lot bit tired. This is an old house. No question about it.
When was that house built? I know it's old, but when was it built?
1923?
Ah, so yours is older than my building. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's same era of Los Angeles.
Yeah, like mine's early 30s, mid 30s.
Wooden bungalow-style house on a hill in Los Angeles. It's a miracle it's still standing. I love it.
Have you guys ever been at risk of mudslides since you've lived there?
No, not really. Built in bedrock. Hello, and welcome to Expected Own Goals. She believes, but does she believe enough? Edition. I am your host, Eric Morgan.
I'm Evan Davis. Yeah, very interesting international break that I'm looking forward to getting into. We'll get to it eventually, but I must say, never has a loss felt so good.
Yeah, I feel like there is a little bit of a sky is falling vibe that's happening, and that's madness. Emma Hayes finally lost her first game in her 18th start as a U.S. manager. Emma Hayes' record is now officially with the U.S. women 15-2-1. That would be inside an NWSL season 47 points from a possible 54. That's outrageous. She's doing fine. The sky isn't falling. I hope everyone's cool. But before we get to the She Believes of it all, we've had some news. First off, we've had jersey drops. Evan, what is your favorite and your least favorite of the jerseys dropped today?
I truly don't have an opinion.
You don't?
I don't.
Have you seen the Gotham one? It's real bad.
I have seen the Gotham one. I've seen them all, but none of them really get my blood pumping for good or for ill. I'm also not the target audience, I don't think. Like, I love design, but I just don't care about jersey design all that much, unless something is really, really garish. And there was a lot of like solid print jerseys this year, barring the Angel City one, the San Diego one, a couple others, but it's all very neutral was my reaction to those.
Yeah, fair enough. I think for me, the best of them was either Angel City or that Seattle white with the sun wave. That's very cool. But also deserving special mention, just because I love it when teams use colors that are not primarily in their crest. The Racing Louisville green.
That was a nice one. I got to give it up to the Racing Louisville shirt, no question.
I love it when teams have a secondary kit that doesn't need any of the like its brand is strong enough that doesn't need any of the colors of the primary kit.
Somebody in our Discord was trying to spin out the rationale for like distillers use limestone to filter water to make bourbon, which I don't know if that's true. Maybe it is, but
probably.
If that was Racing Louisville's thinking, that's quite a pull.
I don't know. Kentucky's just a verdant place.
Sure is.
And yet bluegrass is what it is known for. So, surprised the shade of green they selected, but regardless, looks good.
Yeah.
Then we have the less, this is just me playing the avoidant game as a Portland boy, because then we have the truly devastating triple whammy, and it is important that Portland is wearing all black this year because there was a funereal posting. I don't think I've ever seen 3 SEIs drop on the same day.
Yeah, all for knee issues, all is slightly different from each other. One, an ACL tear with Portland, one, an ACL tear in national team camp, and then a continued knee issue from a previous summer that wasn't an ACL tear. Morgan Weaver, Nicole Payne, Marie Mueller, arguably two of your top 3 fullbacks gone. Your pretty critical attacking weapon gone.
Scottie Pippen, gone. Yeah.
Scottie Pippen is gone. And Jordan can do it by himself, but Jordan's been dealing with a bum ankle for a few months, so we don't know what her status is either. It's a mess in Portland right now. And as I said on Patreon, thank God we haven't recorded that preview yet, because we have to throw our predictions straight out the window.
That's right. I think for me, Mueller, who was easily the best net positive defender on the Thorns last year, that's a real loss. But Morgan Weaver, this kind of persistent nagging injury that requires essentially to take a whole season off to recover from is terrifying to me. Have we already seen the last of peak Morgan Weaver? And if so, that's just so sad. We're potentially robbed of very, very good player.
I mean, who knows? Her future is not etched in stone yet. There's even a potentiality, and I have no idea if this is actually going to come to pass, of her coming back this season. All the SCI list means is that your injury is serious enough to keep you out for an extended period of time, and they want to free up a roster spot. So we don't really have much clarity beyond the fact that she had to have knee surgery last year, and that same knee has been aggravated, and she needs more work, more rehabilitation. She's not 22, and this is a recurring injury on a place of a soccer player's body that's pretty critical for their success. At the age of 27, maybe this is the end, but I'm not quite there yet, personally. Just too many unknowns.
I don't think it's the end. I just worry that it might be the end of the player that we saw, and the next iteration of Morgan Weaver that comes back is still a solid pro, but just doesn't reach the heights.
And I think you need to check your mailbox for the pearls I'm going to send you that you can clutch.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Also, if you just head up I-5 a little bit, Veronica Latsko leaves an already starved for goals Seattle Reign attack reeling yet further. How does this injury change things?
Feels quite serious because Latsko is a versatile number 10 winger type, and there isn't really anyone that you would want to automatically fill in her spot in the starting 11, because you either have aging, declining talent on one side of it and really young, unproven talent on the other. Jisoo Yun running it back as the 10 doesn't feel great to me. And if you're looking for winger replacements, we don't know what Maddie Dalian is going to be. We don't know to what extent Emery Adamas can step up. Anna Maria Chernogorcevic and Aurelia Mondesir were quite poor in their brief spells late last season. Is that the small sample bug biting them, or is this who they are in the NWSL? It's not clear, but none of those options are a guaranteed hit. And that's the thing that makes me a little nervous, because we just recorded our Seattle season preview with Sills of Shea Butter, and Sills was quite clear that this team needs goals. And it's great to have Lynn Biondolo, but you got to get Lynn Biondolo the ball.
To sort of put a bow on this, the vibes in the Pacific Northwest right now are very, to quote a famous Pacific Northwest artist, I hate myself and I want to die vibes. To quote the late, great Kurt Cobain. And you know what? For late February in a dreary part of the country at times, yeah, oof. All right, let's move on and talk about the SheBelieves Cup and what I think will end up being a really, really good set of teachable moments.
Go on.
And lessons to be learned moving forward. The SheBelieves Cup, which is usually just a U.S. women's national team coronation to give themselves a trophy, turned out not to be that this time around. Why don't we dive in and talk a little bit briefly about what we saw in those first two games, and then really use the lion's share of this time to talk about the fascinating matchup we saw against Japan.
I think the first two games, and I would say this for Japan's first two games as well, have a lot more to do with where Colombia and Australia are at right now than it has anything to do with Japan or the US. Australia, it is no secret to anyone listening to this show, is in free fall with the players that they have available, the coaching situation that's going on. They fielded 9 players over the age of 30 in their roster, and it showed they were awful. And Colombia, better, but not particularly great or formidable either when they were playing Japan in the U.S., to me. Besides Linda Caicedo, there was very little that they had to offer going forward. They leaked goals. If you go by XG per shot differential, they were the worst team in the tournament. That was very disappointing to see from two teams that are supposed to be in the mix for the top dozen or so sides in the world. And they did not really demonstrate that. And it is hard to argue for them in the way that Emma Hayes defended the U.S.'s performances, because they weren't exactly fielding young and experimental lineups. Like, they were basically bringing out their horses. And it just never clicked for either of them. And I don't think Japan and the U.S. had to make tough work to get past either of them. The only thing that I would say about the U.S. for those two games is that They would kind of switch off for like 5-10 minute spells in the games. The lineup completely changed from the Australia game to the Colombia game. But I don't care, and I'll continue not caring when we get to the Japan game, because this was all about blooding young players and getting caps for young players and creating on-field relationships for younger players and basically using this as a development opportunity, which, by the way, is what it's supposed to be, because this tournament doesn't mean anything. Those first couple of games for the U.S. certainly had their moments. Ali Sentner got her long-range screamer, which was fun to watch.
It was really fun to watch. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, Tara McKeown got playing time. Emily Sams looked quite good in her spell. Kat Macario is back on the field, which is really important. And Lindsay Heaps played for some reason. And Claire Hutton got a game, which was great to see.
And a hockey assist on Michelle Cooper's goal.
What a hockey assist, and what a finish by Cooper as well.
Tara McKeown got a proper assist on Ali Sentner's long-range bomb. For me, I actually thought the half that Emma Sears put in against Australia, she essentially got the hockey assist on the opening goal in the first 45 seconds, but her progressive dribbling, I thought, was worthy of note. Also, congratulations to Michelle Cooper for scoring like moments into her debut, just taking that ball off Ali Sentner as Sentner fell over in the box.
It was cool to watch.
It was really cool to watch. But that's the vibe of those first two games. It was really cool to watch the U.S. B team decimate not particularly good opposition.
Yeah, or like the USWNT team at times. Yeah.
And if you're like me, I was a little bit scoreboard watching what Japan was doing to this opposition at the same time and thinking, this Japan team seems to be dominating these shared opponents a bit more than we were. And we roll into the Japan game, and Japan just jumped the U.S.
Yeah, Japan rolled out basically a full-strength 11. Emma Hayes talked about this a lot, both before the game and after the game. She kept using the phrase played in together about Japan, and it's true. Yue Hasegawa and Fuka Nagano have played so much together over the years, under multiple coaches and in multiple systems, and know each other like the backs of their hands running central midfield for the Japanese. Same thing with Mina Tanaka up top and mixing in Saki Kumagai in central defense. Ayaka Yamashita, I think, played 2 of the 3 games throughout the tournament. This is just Japan. Whereas the 11 that came out for the U.S. against Japan was this odd Frankenstein's monster of the Coffees and the Lindsay Heapses of the world mixed in with the Lily Johannesses and the Ali Sentners of the world. It was a misshapen creature. There was probably not a lot of opportunity for them to find dominance. I think the thing that's interesting about the game is that since Japan had made their coaching transition from Futoshi Ikeda to Niels Nilsson, who is, and I actually didn't know this, the first non-Japanese head coach of the Japan women's national team, they are no longer a 5 at the back, keep shape and then hit you on the break team the way that they were under Futoshi-san. And they're not playing suffer ball the way they did against the U.S. in the Olympics. They were pressing, they were playing fast, and they were finding gaps between the lines to play the possession football that made this team famous in the 2010s, but with a level of high up the field aggression that I have not seen from Japan in a long time. Forward line of Mina Tanaka, Yuka Momiki, and Aoba Fujino last night were destroying Emily Fox and Tara McKeown at times. There was so many opportunities to pull the U.S. defense out of its shape and play between the lines with incredible one-touch diagonal triangles. Hayes talked about it after the game. This was kind of what she wanted. She wanted inexperienced players to feel the cauldron that top-level international competition can feel like, even if it's a friendly game. McKeown had never been in that environment before. Johannes had never been in that environment before. Sentner, like, go down the line. A lot of inexperience here with playing one of the 5-6 best teams in the world. It showed. And one of the things she also talked about was like having players feel what it feels like when you jump your pressing trigger too early or you don't shift along your back line in sync with your other center back. And things that like might in the moment be small mistakes that if your opposition isn't good enough might not punish you for, But when it's Aoba Fujino and Mina Tanaka and Yui Hasegawa, they're going to punish you for it. And they did. Makion stepping into midfield too early and leaving a gap, which is kind of like Sonnet is getting the blame for the first goal. It's kind of the space that Makion is creating while ball watching that allows for Momiki to make the run in the first place.
I don't know if it's as much Makion making that as a collective lack of imagination for what Japan might attempt to do with that pass.
Sure.
Look, it's a great ghosted run, and it leaves Emily Sonnet flat-footed in the second minute. The goal begins, I think, even moments earlier, as Makion tries to play out of the back and ends up giving up a throw-in because the U.S. is, at that point, very insistent on playing out of the back. And Makion and Crystal Dunn's spacing just isn't very good. And Makion plays the ball out, and it turns into a Japanese throw-in in the final third. On its own, that's actually not that bad an error. The number of times we see just like a defender play a ball out for a throw-in, that's not like the craziest or most dangerous situation. The problem was when you saw that front three and then Hasegawa and Nagano denying passing lanes into the midfield, into Johannes, into Coffee, that there was still an insistence on playing out of the back as opposed to clearing your line occasionally, I think created that mess. And out of that mess comes a throw in and then Hasegawa picking a devastating through ball. It ends up on the foot of Momiki, who has beaten Emily Sonnet for pace and then has the presence of mind to take a touch, let Sonnet and Campbell kind of go mighty ducks on each other and take each other out of the play, just like a Disney goon attack on each other, and then just whips around and curls the ball into effectively an empty net.
I saw some reporting that Sonnet slipped and blamed the notorious Snapdragon turf for the slip, but like I watched that moment back numerous times. She did not slip. And the grass actually looked okay because now it's San Diego FC's grass, but that's another story. Like Sonnet did not slip. She and Campbell miscommunicated, and in attempting to clean up a mess, Sonnet ran straight into her goalkeeper. Momiki also did them no favors by juking them while they came to clash.
This to me is more credit to Japan for excellent pressing triggers, turning the ball over, and then with the ball, taking the opportunity to play adventurous through balls into dangerous spaces. I think in the commentary, there's an arrogance that we often hear from the American media about like the U.S. really just should never concede. And that's madness. Teams are creative and crafty, and Japan is a very, very good team. That is the defining element of what that opening goal is. That's you just got it.
And I think like I wrote this at the end of my piece for Equalizer about this game, like winning's fun, but losing is the thing that teaches you to never lose again.
Shoresy's back.
Oh, baby. I binged the whole season at the stroke of midnight on Tuesday when it dropped, believe me. Not the best season of Shoresy, but still incredibly funny. Anyway, I opened the episode the way that I did for a reason. Like, this game had to happen. Like, you have to teach players what it feels like when things aren't going your way. You kind of have to throw your young players into the fire to help them understand what it's like when you get into environments like this. And you want to do that 2.5 years before it matters, because no one's going to remember this loss in 2.5 years' time, especially if the U.S. end up winning the World Cup in Brazil. But the things that the players on the field went through and had to deal with and had to fail at will be lessons that they can take toward that ultimate goal. And so, yeah, the back line was really disjointed and pulled out of shape. Lily Johannes did not seem interested in defending or covering Sam Coffey at all when they were out of possession and put Coffey under a lot of pressure. We still have to get everybody on the same page on how to make sure the double marking of Sam Coffey to take her out of the game will fail as an opposition strategy, because so far it kind of hasn't. And the forwards were fine, actually, I thought, generally speaking. And then you got to figure out what the fuck you're going to do with Lindsay Heaps.
Yeah, this is the issue. The disconnect that happened, the back line had a couple wobbles Frankly, I'm not that mad at a back line that gives up that opener and then a secondary attempt from a tight angle on a very good free kick that was parried away. These are teachable moments, but they are also not exactly like a 30-pass sequence in the run of play that decimates your team. The U.S. didn't succumb to that kind of stuff. They succumbed to mental lapses twice.
Yeah, and again, like, you kind of expect that from players who have like fewer than 5 caps under their belts.
Totally. And the bigger deal in my mind is the lack of ability to connect from the back line to the midfield and then to just completely absent at times Lindsay Heaps, who made it look like the U.S. was often playing something closer to a 4-2-4, which is not how I think they intended to line up. But Heaps' positioning, as it was in all the games in the SheBelieves tournament, was just truly free range. It was the freest range role in a career where she does this. It was deeply ineffective, and I felt at times the Japanese just kind of could almost play up a man because they knew that Lindsay Heaps' positioning wasn't of consequence.
Yeah, I mean, if you want Heaps to be your number 10, and in fairness to Hayes, she's kind of being put in this position because Rose Lavelle isn't available. But on the other hand, you have Jaden Shaw, who probably should be playing that position in Brazil in 2.5 years' time. You still have things to teach Jaden Shaw, despite her experience beyond her years. There's not much else that you can teach Heaps. We know what Heaps is. And if the objective is to plan for the long term, so much so that you tell Casey Kruger that she's not in your plans going forward, then you got to figure out how to manage Heaps, whether it's moving her further back and making her accept that she has to be an 8 or a double 6, not a 10, or, dare I say it, sliding her to the bench. It's just throwing the balance off completely. And by the way, it's been doing that for a while because they've been trying to do this with her for at least a year, going back to the Twyla Kilgore period.
There is a redundancy in what Lindsay Heaps offers you against what the other better organized attackers are offering you. We've got this pulled up. Lindsay Heaps over 198 minutes was generating 0.15 non-penalty XG plus XA per 96. That is really, really bad from a 10. Moreover, 0.14 of that is on shot attempts. So she's creating essentially nothing for her teammates in a role that is designed to be a facilitator. Maybe it's a double false 9, maybe it's a double 10 with Macario, but there was such redundancy there. And Macario put together a really nice tournament and a really nice game, as exemplified by the slotted through ball she played to Ali Sentner to level this game against Japan in the 14th minute. That was sort of Macario doing Macario stuff. But Heaps, who takes a Lionel Messi walking approach to elements of her game at this point, and Macario, who is, for all of her brilliant abilities on the ball, not the fleetest of foot, as we saw in the Yasmin Ryan transition at the end of the first half, left the U.S. pretty toothless. And if it wasn't coming from Ali Sentner's running, or Emma Sears running, or Michelle Cooper's running in these games, it kind of wasn't coming. And moreover, I think the biggest sin of all is against Japan in the second half is Lindsay Heaps continued to play in the center of the pitch, shuffling Jaden Shaw out to the wing, where you just lose so much of what is good about Jaden Shaw. So much of what you saw was good about Jaden Shaw in the Australia game. Emma Hayes is obviously very smart, a very good manager. Again, first loss in 18 games, a deserved loss, but the XG split in this game of 1.7 to 1.1, plenty of times teams win on the downside of that XG split.
The XG per shot split is 0.18 to 0.12 in Japan's favor. So Japan was clearly getting better chances.
Yeah, consistently the better chances. But for me, the big breakdowns happened further up the field than in the back. It's everywhere, actually.
It's everywhere. And again, it's understandable. I think the thing that I really home in on is that Lily Johannes is going to get better at defense. McKeown is going to get better at keeping her position. Sentner is going to get better about her touch receiving diagonal balls and timing her runs in behind. I don't know what Lindsay Heaps is going to get better at. And that's the thing that I have felt concern about for a long time. And we've talked about it on the show before. There's a lot that's going to change in the next 2.5 years, and maybe Lindsay Heaps isn't at the World Cup in Brazil, and maybe Hayes and Heaps herself don't know that yet. But maybe it'll come. But if it doesn't come, then you are still putting Heaps in a very core position of how your team progresses and builds its attack. And if that doesn't change, then we have a problem. It seemed, based on the evidence in the Japan game, that maybe that's just not how Hayes is thinking right now.
I think you hit the nail on the head here, which is this glut of incredible attacking talent is deep for the U.S. There are a lot of really valuable goal scorers and facilitators. Again, a triple espresso-less tournament. And Allie Sentner, who I know we have dogged on the pod and occasionally wish took shots from better locations, boy, she looked the part.
Well, especially in the Colombia game. I'm even setting aside the long-range bomb that she actually scored in that game. Like, she was a terror in the box throughout that match. And then the goal that she scored against Japan was like a 0.35 XG chance. It was an incredibly well-taken chance on the kind of attacking move that you want to see out of the U.S. forwards.
Yeah, moreover, the kind of run that you want to see from Allie Sentner constantly, which is just filling, and if she's to have a good season in Utah this year, the kind of run Utah should be looking to activate, which is diagonal runs using her not inconsiderable pace to find sort of slots between the central defenders, and then just like head up really good finishing. Because the thing about long-range shooters is they're also often pretty good short-range shooters. The thing that gives you the confidence to take long shots means you're probably okay as a short-range shooter. I know the joke running in this tournament was that she was too close to goal. She missed too many of those chances. But she scored 2 goals on what?
She scored 2 goals and she generated about 2 XG in total. So there you go.
She's good money for what she did. That's the Allie Sentner you really want to be seeing. I wish we could say the same thing about Jaden Shaw at the 10 in this tournament that we can say about Allie Sentner on the wing.
And I'll also say that, Hayes had a lot of praise for Sentner. She's felt that her performances across those 2 starts really exemplified a positive of the tournament. But she had a negative 0.06 per 96 receiving G+ score with Utah. And as a focal point of a team's attack, that's quite troubling. And one thing that I did see a lot against Japan was bad touches when trying to receive balls, and a lot of attacks that ended because she could not keep the ball under her control. Part of that was Japan's pressure, but also part of it was Sentner just not being able to marshal the service that was coming her way. And so that's something that she needs to be really mindful of and hopefully improve upon if she is going to make the roster in 2027. But that's also fine because she just turned 21 and she has less than 5 caps to her name. And this is all what the tournament is supposed to be doing for the U.S. at this point in time. It's supposed to allow them to make mistakes in a high stakes but not high stakes environment. This is the perfect place. This is the perfect context to allow players to fail. And I just think that needs to be really, really stressed that, of course, Japan put in the performance that they did. They rolled out their best available team. And, you kind of have to say that about the U.S. Like, this is sort of what you expect. Honestly, 1.1 XG against a full-strength Japan when you're rolling out a bunch of players with fewer than 5 caps to their name, it's actually kind of impressive in a way.
Yeah, it's more XG than they managed against Japan in 120 minutes at the Olympics.
That's right.
Japan is a really worthy opponent. I'm going to ask some quick hit questions and we can debate these. All right, you ready?
Yep.
The U.S. went into this game as the number 1 ranked team in the world. Is Japan actually the best team in the world right now?
I don't know, because I also have England-Spain fresh in my mind from the Nations League, which was a very interesting contest. I'll hedge a little bit and just say that the top 5 in some order are the U.S., England, Spain, the Netherlands, and Japan, and you can decide on what the order is. I think the U.S. at full strength is still probably number 1, and I don't know if I put Japan 2 or 3 or 4. I don't think I put them 5. They're certainly better than the Netherlands. But it's just a matter of like what order you want to put Japan, England, and Spain in.
A lot of shade to Brazil with that one, Evan.
Oh my God. No. Oh, you're right. You're absolutely right. I completely blanked on Brazil. Yes. So Brazil's in there too. I mean, that's sort of like a top 6 that you can form. And if you're feeling drunk, you can throw France in there and make it 7. But yeah, is Japan better than Brazil? I don't know. I don't know if they are. It's an interesting deck shuffle, however you sort 2 through 5, I think, with Brazil, England, Spain, and Japan.
Okay. Now we're going to go roster side. I'm going to ask you about each of the players who got minutes in this tournament and whether or not you think that they improved, basically held serve, or hurt their odds of making the World Cup squad in a couple of years. So, Jane Campbell.
Held serve. She didn't have a great game against Japan, but whatever.
Yep. Mandy McGlynn.
Probably held serve as well. Goalkeeper is just such a toss-up at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Emily Fox.
Held serve mostly just because of history. She didn't have a great game against Japan.
The thing that hurt is the question I'll ask next. Giselle Thompson.
I think she improved. I think she improved her chances.
You think so?
She played okay. I mean, she didn't set the world on fire, but she played well enough to make you still think, oh, something could happen in 2.5 years with her.
Emily Sonnet.
Held serve. Looked a little dicey against Japan. First time maybe ever that she kind of showed her age, but she's Sonnet.
I think it's possible she mildly hurt her odds. It's only mild. Tara McKeown.
Maybe weakened her chances, especially just given all of the hype that she had coming into the tournament.
I actually agree with you about that. She was one of the minutes leaders for the U.S. in this tournament. It's a vote of faith from Emma Hayes, but I felt like on the level, there were maybe a handful more minuses than pluses for her over the course of this tournament. There were just periods of great discomfort. All right, Crystal Dunn.
Maybe just barely weakened. Like, I don't think she had like a particularly special tournament, and just given her age, like, I don't know. I think she really would have had to blow the doors off the place to keep things in the mix.
I'll go out and say I actually think she probably did hurt her odds. She just seems rusty.
Yep.
And there are good reasons for that, but she seems rusty.
Yeah. If you're going to take a mid-30s left back and keep them in the player pool, I think we know which one we'd want. And it's not Crystal Dunn.
Lily Johannes.
I think maybe hurt her chances a little bit, but also like it doesn't matter. I mean, she'll be 19 for the World Cup, so if she doesn't make that squad, she'll make them eventually.
I think the assist she played in the opener, and by that I mean the hockey assist she played, just sort of demonstrates a skill set.
And turning out of pressure and releasing players further forward. Johannes in possession is the finished article. It's just a matter of making sure that she can handle her business out of possession.
Yeah, but that hockey assist she played in the opener was divine, and something that really only her and Sam Coffey can do in that midfield, or at least do as of now. Corbin Albert.
Held serve, because we just know what Emma Hayes thinks of her.
Yeah, that's the problem. I feel like Corbin Albert was a bundle of inefficiency again, and I think that Emma Hayes just has a blind spot for that.
Pretty tenacious, second place among central mids in terms of possession-adjusted tackles and interceptions per game. But also the player above her was the Australian Winona Heatley, who I'd never heard of before this tournament. So take that stat with a grain of salt.
I think what you do against Australia is, it just counts less. Now Claire Hutton.
Improved, but also maybe that doesn't mean she's going to be in the 2027 roster, but she played very well in the one game that she played in.
Emily Sams.
I think improved. I thought she looked pretty good. Yeah.
Tierna Davidson.
Held serve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's still the best non-Naomi Girma long-range passer that the U.S. backline has, and maybe with Naomi Girma.
And she still won 7 out of 8 defensive duels that she got into. So, like, you know, she's still holding up her end of the bargain.
All right. Sam Coffey.
Held serve.
It feels like there are a few names more in ink at this point in an Emma Hayes side than Sam Coffey.
You just got to get your number 8 to do their goddamn job.
Or to even just play number 8. All right. Alyssa Thompson.
Maybe slightly improved.
Yeah, I thought she looked promising in bursts. I still think she's predictably dribbly.
Yeah. Her XG plus XA numbers were like not super, super great, but I thought she was fine.
Jaden Shaw.
If Hayes is paying attention, then Shaw improved her chances.
Yeah, for me, she improved her chances. Whether Emma Hayes sees her that way was really disappointing to see after what she did to Australia, how she was deployed against Japan.
Exactly.
Emma Sears.
Improved her chances, for sure. And not for like the service that she was actually ultimately providing or even the shots that she was taking. She was just sort of a menace. As an auxiliary, draw attention away from other players kind of forward.
Jenna Neiswanger.
You answer first.
I think she hurt herself in this tournament.
That's sort of where I'm leaning, yeah.
Jenna Neiswanger is a left back on tilt who's gotten a lot of opportunities. I was devastated for her that horrific offside call at the end of the Japanese game ended up getting flagged because she played exactly the right ball for the first time in the tournament off of it. A low-driven penalty spot bullet to, I believe at the time, Lynn Biondolo that probably would have at least turned into a very high XG chance. I felt terrible that was called off unjustly, but that kind of felt like a metaphor for all of Jenna Neiswanger's tournament.
Yep.
Okay. Allie Sentner.
Improved her chances, for sure.
Yeah. Maybe nobody did more.
At least in the goal against Japan and in those 3 inside-the-box chances against Colombia, it shows what she can offer if she is timing her runs right and getting herself into good positions to receive the ball. There's a big ceiling there. Just stop shooting from outside the box, please.
It felt like she was handed the keys to the car and drove it quite well.
And Hayes seems like she's putting a lot of trust in her going forward.
Yeah. Yes, Ryan.
I think probably improved her chances.
Yep. I agree.
It's a really nice service against Japan at times.
The upper limits of her athleticism are always going to be the issue, but I think Yasmin Ryan did a lot of nice attacking things. Kat Macario.
Yeah, she improved her chances. I think Hayes wants her to be there and gave her 130 minutes to prove her mettle, and she took some good chances. So I say yes, improved.
Michelle Cooper.
Improved, for sure.
Yep. I would have loved to have seen her get more minutes, but...
Yep. They'll be coming.
Lynn Biondolo.
Held serve. It's just a matter of health and fitness in 2.5 years' time. That's the only thing that'll determine Biondolo's place.
That's right. And finally, Lindsay Heaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Hayes, she probably held serve. For me personally, I'd say she decreased her chances, but I'm not sure Hayes sees it that way. The next 27 and a half months are kind of about the Emma Hayes-Lindsay Heaps relationship, at least in terms of how she performs on the field and what Hayes thinks of that.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. I think the narrative moving forward surrounding the value add or lack thereof of Lindsay Heaps to this team and to ultimately what Emma Hayes' vision of this team looks like. I'll be very curious to see what Lindsay Heaps plus triple espresso looks like in a year.
Yeah. It didn't always look the tastiest at the Olympics. I'll tell you that much.
No, it didn't. Any other final thoughts?
No, only that the U.S. came to do a job, and even though they were outplayed and lost against a superior Japan team, they did their job. They needed the kids to feel what it was like to make a mistake against a technically superior opponent. Like Hayes said, get it done now. Don't let a game like this happen in the knockout stage of the World Cup. Let it happen now. So I think, there's this word that coaches like to use, learnings rather than lessons, which kind of makes my skin crawl. I think there were a lot of learnings that they can take forward. So
much learnings to be had.
Thanks for sticking with us on this late main feed drop this week. We will be back sooner than you know it. We'll be back on Tuesday on main feed. Until then, rate us, review us, follow us if you haven't done so on your podcatcher of choice. Tell all your friends about us, rate us 5 stars, and follow us on social media at XOwnGoals. That's the letter XOwnGoals. If you have not subscribed to our Patreon, $6 a month or $60 a year gets you 4 bonus episodes every single month, including access to our Discord server and our semi-regular YouTube live streams. Email us at expectedowngoals@gmail.com. That's the letter expectedowngoals@gmail.com if you think we've made an own goal. And we will be back on Patreon next Thursday at a regularly scheduled time, and see you on main feed this Tuesday.
Please rate us 5 stars if you haven't already. We would much appreciate it.
We'd love it.
And if you write a review, I will read it on air, no matter how mean it is.
Bye.
Bye.